Good evening and welcome to the July 14th Oshkosh Common Council meeting. Please call the roll.
Krause.
Here.
Mugrower.
Here.
Erickson.
Here.
Peschel.
Here.
Ford.
Here.
Allison Osby.
Here.
Palmieri.
Here.
Present 7.
Deputy Mayor Jake Krause will lead us in the invocation, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance.
As we gather tonight, we are grateful for the good things that have come to this city. May our decisions always be ones that are for the well-being of all whom we govern. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We now have a proclamation. If Doug Guerin could come to the front from the Winnebago County Health Department. This proclamation is regarding voluntary masking, whereas a novel strain of the SARS-CoV-2 virus named COVID-19 has spread throughout numerous countries, including the United States. And whereas the World Health Organization, the United States Health Department and Human Services, the state of Wisconsin, and the city of Oshkosh have declared public health emergencies. And whereas evidence suggests that wearing a cloth face covering reduces the risk of a person with COVID-19 infection spreading the infection to others, and may also protect people without a COVID-19 infection from exposure to droplets that may contain the virus, and health authorities, including the Centers for Disease Control, the Surgeon General of the United States, and the Wisconsin Department of Health and Human Services, have recommended the use of face coverings as a means of preventing the spread of COVID-19. And whereas the city of Oshkosh, in cooperation with local, state, and federal governmental entities, desires to take action to prevent exposure to and spread of the COVID-19 coronavirus by strongly encouraging the use of face coverings by persons within the city of Oshkosh, by those persons able to wear cloth face coverings, and whereas the majority of people are able to wear cloth face coverings, some people may not be able to due to a medical condition, mental health condition, or disability. And it's important for everyone to show patience and respect for other persons. Now therefore I, as mayor of City of the Oshkosh, Lori Palmieri of Oshkosh, Wisconsin, hereby proclaim and declare the following: that all persons who are present within the jurisdiction of the City of Oshkosh are strongly encouraged to wear a clean face covering anytime they are or will be in contact with other people who are not household members in public or private spaces where it is not possible to maintain social distance, or where recommended social distancing practices are not being followed. These spaces include grocery stores, pharmacies, business locations, parking lots, sidewalks, and public buildings and public transit. Businesses within the city of Oshkosh are encouraged to require customers to wear a face covering while inside the business and to require or strongly encourage employees and staff to wear a face covering while on duty. Public safety and emergency management personnel are strongly encouraged to educate and encourage the public to use face coverings to limit the spread of COVID-19. That everyone is encouraged to show respect to those who are not able to wear face covering for medical, religious, behavioral, or other reasons, and to practice patience and to educate those who may not wear a face covering because they are not aware of the benefits of face coverings, have forgotten or are not wearing face coverings for other personal reasons. Likewise, the public is encouraged to respect those who choose to wear masks.
Thank you, Mary Palmieri. We appreciate you drawing attention to masking as a part of a response to the COVID pandemic that we're in. As the mayor mentioned, you know, we're in a difficult position here right now, and we know that 40% of people with COVID-19 have asymptomatic infections. In other words, they don't have a symptom, and yet most of those people can transmit that infection to somebody else and not even know it. For that reason alone, masking is really important. We certainly want to try to minimize the spread of infection as long as we can. We've been fortunate in the last couple of weeks here to, you know, not be overwhelmed with cases, although we are certainly expecting a little bit of an uptick from recent activities. We need to keep rates as low as we can as we go into the school year so that we can try to keep our schools open as long as possible. And, you know, and just for the business sense of it, I mean, we're really looking for businesses to embrace masking so that they don't infect their coworkers, they don't infect the patrons, and by limiting infections, by using masks, those businesses can stay open longer, they can keep their staff healthier, and our community as a whole can be healthier until, you know, we're able to resolve this. You know, we're in this for the long haul, and we need to find ways to support one another. Masking is a very simple and easy way. It's an effective way that we can support one another from spreading disease unintentionally, and also just being respectful of our fellow citizens here in Oshkosh. So, thank you again, Mayor, and as your public health director, I certainly encourage everyone to wear a mask when they're around other people as much as possible. Thank you.
We now have a presentation for Morgan Crossing Apartments Phase 2 presentation by Peter Jungbacker. Is Mr. Jungbacker here? Actually, if you could come over here to this side, that would be great. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you for having me come. I understand I have 10 minutes. I'll try and keep it as brief as possible. For a few of you, this may be a repeat of a conversation that we had previously. I'm here tonight to talk about, as part of the TIF education and scheduling process, Morgan Crossing Phase 2. The button that I have is this one here. Press. No, it's not that button.
Can somebody help him with?
You'll advance it over there?
Okay.
Good, okay. I have 19 slides. Some of them will be very brief. You have packages that you can look at, or probably have already looked at to get an understanding about the project. So the title slide, number 1, is, again, the project is somewhat of a replica of the first phase of Morgan Crossing. We'll be duplicating architecturally what you see there with the 74-unit project. By way of background, in terms of sponsorship and what we've done in the community in the past, I wanted to just present 5 slides of some representative projects. River Place, Concord Place, which is across the street from the project. The third slide is the existing Morgan Crossing project on Pearl and Dawes Street. And then we're doing a rehab project on High and in New York, which is wrapping up. We actually had the first building take possession last month, and we've pre-rented everything there for the next 2 months. You'll see quite a lot of work on the outside of that project coming up momentarily. We've also done some commercial properties. Number 6 is a image of some representative projects in the community, smaller retail on 20th and Westtown, and then a larger project, which is the home of Ross and Best Buy and Ulta, Five Below, Five Guys. It was the former Menards that was completely rebuilt over the last half dozen years or so. The next slide is the project itself, which is, again, what we refer to as Morgan Crossing Phase 2. This is a schematic of the project looking southwest to northeast. The parking lot, it's a 4-story underground parking building with 74 units, a mixture of 1s, 2s, and studio units. It'll be built with 9-foot ceilings, underground parking, which will take some pressure off the parking field at the ground level. Each unit has its own HVAC system, in-unit laundry, stainless steel appliances, and granite countertops. So it's a product that I think will be received nicely. Currently, Morgan Crossing Phase 1, as of this month, is 100% occupied. The target market, the next slide, for the project is primarily young professionals, university staff, some seniors, and perhaps some co-living in the 2-bedroom units where you might have unrelated parties renting a unit together. The specific location for the project is essentially due south of this location, about 2 blocks, on the Pearl and near the intersection of Pearl and Jackson. The property is about the same size and acreage as the first phase. The next slide is a little more detailed image of the site, and you'll see with some subsequent slides how it's integrated into the existing development. So the next slide actually has the drawing for the building to be built and the integration of the parking lot into the existing parking lot. And as you can see, it creates a wall of development along Pearl Avenue, which was one of the original design elements that was proffered by the Planning Commission when this particular area was originally developed. The next slide is the underground parking. This is important in large part because, again, we're taking a lot of pressure off the ground level parking. Morgan Crossing Phase 1 has underground parking. These are expensive amenities to build for the project. They, however, represent an ability to create more density and less suburban feel for the parking lot on the exterior of the project. The next slide is a representative floor sample of the project. The only difference on this particular slide, if you look at either end, we decided to add studio units. So we have 16 studio units that have been incorporated into the 2 bedrooms that are at the end. And this particular slide doesn't represent that at the moment, but that'll be in the final drawing submitted. The next slide is the next floor. Again, these are all stacked on top of each other, so they pretty much represent the same floor layout. The next slide is a good elevation shot of what you'll expect to see. We're in large part replicating the existing building. However, we've on the interior of the building, we've tried to add a number of technology amenities that weren't present when the first phase was done. We'll have wireless throughout the building. There'll be a mail delivery room. There's a butterfly, it's called the butterfly system. It's a trademark product that allows access and records people's entry and exit into the building. The next shot is another elevation of the building along Pearl Avenue. It's looking east from Dawes and Pearl, so you get some sense of what the elevation will look like along the street. Now, on the finishings on the interior, we indicated that we'll be having stainless steel appliances, granite countertops, essentially higher-end plumbing fixtures, plank flooring, the kinds of amenities that will allow us to achieve the targeted market rents. We have a white scheme and a dark scheme. When we did the first phase of Morgan Crossing, one wing had white cabinets, and the other wing had brown cabinets. It gives people a little bit of a choice. Bathroom finishes also at a high level. We have tile surround tubs, granite countertops, designer faucets, Kohler bathroom fixtures, high-end bathroom accessories. We're also planning on using a PACE financing component for this project. The project that was shown earlier on High and New York, the 40-unit, what we call University Loss project, has a PACE financing component to it. PACE is Property Assessed Clean Energy. It's a program that has been adopted by the state of Wisconsin by statute and by Winnebago County, and as well as I think 52 out of the 70-plus counties in Wisconsin. It allows the developer to borrow money to be used specifically for enhancements to the project which create a green project. It's designed to reduce the carbon footprint of the building substantially. And it, I think, is the sort of next generation of design that PACE allows us to accomplish because of the extra assistance of financing provided by it. We actually did the first multifamily PACE rehab transaction at New York and High Avenue in the state of Wisconsin. So Oshkosh was able to be a leader in using PACE financing with that particular PACE element of financing. And the last component here is TIF, which is why we're here. One of the problems that we face in the market today is that rental rates haven't caught up with the cost to build. And if you look at WIDA's rent restrictions for 80% of the county median income, their one-bedroom rents are currently $1,174. And the two-bedroom rents are $1,408. Based on our market, we believe that the one-bedrooms are about $275 over what we can achieve in the market today for our one-bedroom units, and $108 over what we can achieve for the final product for our two-bedroom units. So there's a disconnect in what the market's capacity or ability or willingness to pay rent in this county compared to the costs of manufacturing and creating this space. And the reality is that without TIF financing, we cannot build a underground 4-story project with these amenities in this market and make it work. We actually will be building a product initially that on an income basis will be underwater for a period of time. That's the experience we had when we built River Place 30 plus years ago. That product set the bar for new rents in the community, but it didn't make economic sense for almost a dozen years after we built it. So it takes time, and it takes patience, and it takes the assistance of the council with a TIF contribution to add this kind of product, this housing product, to the marketplace. Thank you for your time. I appreciate it. If you have any questions, I would be happy to answer them.
Councilmember Allison Osby.
Thank you, Mayor. Just out of curiosity, the senior, at what age does that start in this project?
This is not a senior designated product.
No, I understand.
Typically, it would be
listed.
55 years or older.
Okay.
And those products have a set of financing attributes and restrictions associated with them that we are not seeking to utilize.
Mm-hmm.
We do, though, know that we're getting more and more senior interest in living downtown as opposed to being on the west side. And we do anticipate that this product will be a fairly mixed community, given what's appearing to happen. We have a dozen other projects in the market, and we're just seeing more and more of that kind of interest in downtown living.
And that's, I think, I don't know about other council members, but that's certainly a comment that I've received is, especially for those that might be empty nesting between 50 and 55, they're not necessarily ready to be in 65 and over. They would like a mix, and then it's interestingly enough, I have a 90-year-old mom that thinks she's really not a senior and would just as much enjoy somebody that's 50, 55, 60. And so, and you are correct, there seems to be a lot, I hear from a lot of 60s, 70s in town, you know, that would like to have that option of having either an apartment or a condo or something of that nature that's downtown and accessible to the Riverwalk and just, you know, the lifestyle that we've created in our downtown area. So thank you for answering that.
And if I could follow up, a question, is there any anticipation of universal design or accessible units for living and or visiting, or how many of those might be?
Design, I didn't quite.
Wheelchair accessible?
Oh, wheelchair accessible.
units?
Yes, the project will be ADA designed and accessible. There are a number of units that are required, given the size of the project, that have to have ADA configurations for bathrooms and kitchens and doorways. And we already have that in the first phase of Morgan Crossing. I think we have 3 or 4 units that are ADA accessible and have rotation for wheelchairs and bathrooms, have cabinet heights and light fixture heights that are different to reflect the ADA requirements. So yes.
So there are 3 or 4 in the existing, but for phase 2, is that, would that be the same
I
number?
believe it'll be a little bit more than that. It's based on a formula that I'm not as integrally aware of as our architect would be, but I suspect it'll probably be 5 or 6, but I'm not certain.
Okay. Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for your offer. Bye. Thank you.
Excuse me for one moment. I'm having problems turning my phone off. I really did think it was off. Next is consent agenda. Pam, do we have anyone registered to speak on any consent agenda items?
No, we do not.
All right, back to council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Yes,
Councilmember Ford.
yes, I need something to pull.
Yes.
Item, is it 13, I believe?
All right, any other items?
Was it for discussion or separate consideration?
Separate consideration.
All right. So we will take roll call on consent agenda minus number 13, resolution 20-311.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
All right, back to resolution 20-311. Need a motion and a second on 20-311.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, I'll just say I'm recusing myself from this vote because I have a family member who's one of the appointed members, under consideration for appointment, excuse me.
All right. Thank you. Please call the roll.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Present.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 6, 1 present.
Next, we have a new ordinance 15, that's ordinance 20-313. Are there any residents here to speak on this item, Pam?
No one is registered.
Okay, thank you. Back to motion, council for motion and a second.
I move we waive the rules and adopt on first reading.
Second.
All right, please call the roll on waiving the rules.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
And back to the ordinance 20-313. Approve request to attach to the city from the town of Algoma United Cooperative Voluntary Attachment for a portion of property generally located on the east side of Clairville Road, north of State Road 91 and south of Transit Drive. Need a motion and a second on this.
So moved.
Second.
All right, discussion.
Looks like Mr. Davis. Oh,
Mr. Davis, did you wish to speak to this item?
Just if there were any questions, it's just a little strip down Clearville Road's right-of-way that we need to have inside the city so we can proceed with the EDA construction.
Thank you. Pam, can you please call the roll?
Crozy,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Ellison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next, we have pending ordinances. Ordinance 20-314, room tax and short-term rental ordinances. Is there anyone registered to speak?
No one is registered.
All right, back to council for motion and a second.
Move approval.
Second?
Discussion. Please call the roll.
Crozy,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Ellison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next, we have ordinance 20-315, amend city public records ordinance. Anyone registered for this item?
No one is registered.
Back to council.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Mr. Preska, would you just kind of give a highlight of what this is regarding? It was, I believe, adopting the state requirements. Is that correct?
Yes, the state came up with a form, if you will, or a new records manual that they are handing out and giving cities and others the opportunity to adopt. And we're just bringing the city's records ordinance up to date.
Very good, thank you. Please call the roll on 20-315.
Crozy,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Ellison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next, we have ordinance 20-316, amend parking ordinance for P2 Convention Center North Parking Lot and P9 Otter Lot. Is there anyone registered to speak on this item?
No one is registered.
Back to council.
So moved.
Second. Discussion. Seeing none. Bob, Councilmember Peschel, my apologies. I need to call on you, make sure that you're with us. Did you have any?
I'm here with you.
Okay, great.
So, thank you.
All right, please call the roll.
Crozy,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Ellison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next is ordinance 20-317, amend various sections of Chapter 11 Electrical Code. And is there anyone registered on this item?
No one is registered.
Back to council.
So moved.
Second. Discussion? Please call the roll.
Crozy,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Ellison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next is ordinance 20-318, amend bicycle registration ordinances. Is there anyone registered to speak?
No one is registered.
All right, thank you. Back to council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
Actually,
Councilmember McGrower.
thank you, Madam Mayor. And actually, I don't even know really where this one falls under, if it's city attorney or if it's more, because police has a lot to do with interactions with the community and as well as the clerk's office in terms of, or the, in terms of record keeping and things like that. But I think this is a great thing that we're trying to help the community in terms of bike registrations. Usually there's a few dollar fee attached to them, but sometimes it was prohibitive for some to register, so getting those free and in the hands of youth. But I think it was just more procedural. I wanted to comment on reminding city staff any way possible that we can get those, having those at events that the city sponsors, to get those into kids' hands and families' hands, get more registered. Police department, finds and tries to get back bicycles to the youth and those that are missing them in the community, but it can be so tough if they're not registered properly. So anytime that we can have those on hand and just hand them out, I think they absolutely should just be in the squad car or in the vehicle or going along with any city information packet. So just wanted to point that out. So.
Thanks
That's
for
to go
that
with the
detail.
ordinance.
Good.
Thank you.
All right. Next is ordinance 20-
We need a vote.
We should vote on that. Please call the roll.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Ellison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
And next is ordinance 20-319, amend various sections of chapter 2, 6, 7, 8, 16, 17, 19, 20, and 27A. Is there anyone registered to speak on 319?
No one is registered.
All right, back to council.
So moved.
Discussion. Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, just real quick, want to point out for anybody listening that this is essentially just a cleanup of our ordinances so they reflect the current state statutes. So that's what we're doing here.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Ellison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Ordinance 20-320, zone change from institutional district to institutional district with a plan development overlay at 221 North Sawyer Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Is there anyone registered to speak on this item?
Yes, we have several individuals. The first one is Randy Hens. Then next up is David Zerby.
Mr. Kemp? And if Mr. Zerby could follow down and be ready.
Thank you. I'm here to speak on my opposition to this tower in my neighborhood, in this residential area. I don't believe this tower belongs in a residential area. Where they planned on putting it, when they first informed us, they said they were going to put this tower on the opposite side of the building. And although I was against that, I wasn't that far against it that it was okay. But then, thanks to Mr. Zerby, attended the last meeting, and they said, no, they're going to put this thing right in front of our houses. I don't think that makes any sense. If they were to put it on the other side of the building, it has far more room, makes far more sense. The picture shows this large building, larger than any of our homes, is going to be put on the smallest area in the smallest parking lot. It's going to consume almost a third of that parking lot with that one building. I also just read today that they're going to put another building in front of that building, so that's going to chew up more of that parking lot. And then by the time they put 2 or 3 fire trucks in there, I don't see how they're going to do any training in this thing, because again, it shows the smallest area to put this unit, instead of, again, on the opposite side of this building. I would love to see this thing moved over the other side where they already have an accessory building already there on the premises. The chief said that they're going to put 3 garage doors in on this side over here for the fire trucks, so that also makes more sense to me, that everything's going to be over on that side. They talked about recruiting for the high schoolers because they were going to have this big shiny tower there as the high schoolers, because we have both high schools are within an immediate area, and yet they plan on hiding this thing. They said they're going to try to keep it so we can't see it by planting more trees, by blocking off the fence, which brings me to another thing. I believe that fence is going to become a graffiti canvas, but and I don't know how they're going to ever fix any of that fence, because it's going to be one of those woven things inside the chain link fence. So if there is graffiti and stuff, I don't know how they're ever going to get rid of it. And there's no place for snow removal. I don't know how they're going to remove the snow from the inside it. I also don't know how they're going to remove the outside. The fence comes literally up to the sidewalk. And I've watched this throughout my 25 years of living there, where they put it out onto the street, kind of screws up the parking, plow comes by, puts it back on the sidewalk, there's just no place to go with the snow. It's gonna go up against that fence. They can't go up against the fence because there's just no room there. So that fence is gonna look like, it's gonna be damaged after a short period of time. I know this. Kids are gonna walk by there, high schoolers are gonna walk by there, and they're gonna bang on it, poke on it, try to climb the fence. We have a bunch of children because we have the low-income housing next to us, so they're all, a lot of kids there, so adjacent to it. So they're gonna be, they already do climb on that fence. I just don't see any practical ideas of putting this thing over here. I would love to see where they could put, they said they're talking about flag poles, some memorials and stuff like that. We could use this for a smaller parking lot for their classrooms, because they're gonna do some classrooms, I understand, in here. Even a community room. I know they've got community rooms in a few of the other fire stations, because I've used a few of them. That'd be a great place to put a community room on this side of the building. They've got all kinds of area to do a horseshoe type parking facility over on this side. I don't understand why, when they informed us that it was gonna be over on this side, that in the meantime, they moved it over to this side, right in the residential area. It's gonna be far more visible if they wanna try to recruit high school kids and stuff like that to be right on Sawyer Street where it's got more traffic. And they can see it, it's gonna be out there. They don't have to try to hide it. I guess that's really about it. I just wish they'd reconsider the location. At the very least, put it over there. I think it belongs out of town personally, but every other city seems to be putting it out of town. But if you do have to put it in this town, just please try to find a place for it on the other side of that building. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Zerby?
Hello again. Thank you
Good
for
evening.
the time. I know Randy stated a lot of things that I would have stated myself here. I guess the same thing, I don't know from the beginning why this site wasn't, the emphasis wasn't more on the north side, because it is a larger area. And it would alleviate the congestion, the noise that this training facility is gonna cause whenever they are training on a daily basis. And I know the fire chief said, talked about, planting some trees, more trees in front of the fence, and doing something with the fence itself, privacy, slats, what have you, to try to hide some of that. And it would hide a little bit, but it's still, this is a 40-foot tall tower. It's still a big thing to look at, and the trees won't hide it completely. But it's the noise and congestion that it will cause on a street that is very quiet right now. And they also stated they're going to construct a 40-by-40 concrete pad in that parking lot. Again, the other side, they've got to do construction anyway and tear things up. I don't see why that could, I guess from the beginning, I don't know why they haven't, committed all their time to that north side, knowing that the south side is the only private residential side, and that we would have issues with this. Obviously, anybody would. No one wants something like this going right across the street. I'd like to see a training center. I'm all for it. They need one. I would think that most training centers are on the outskirts of towns, on frontage roads, at airports, not in a residential area. But I'd be for it. It's the placement of the tower. And I know the chief said that he would try to talk to the architects again maybe on this, to look at this again on the north side, to see what they could do. I implore you to please do that and to look at that, because it is a very important thing for us, the neighbors. I think I speak for everybody. The tower is just going to be just a horrible sight for us to look at every day. But this noise, confusion, fire trucks going in and out of this, and other training vehicles. And again, I think at some point they're going to have to park I don't know where they're going to have room to park in here. I know the north side it's the lot itself, the blacktop area is a little bit smaller, but there is much more room on the north side. It'd be more expense, but you could put the expense that you're going to spend on the trees, landscaping, fencing on the other side. Plus, the west side of that whole property has already 15-foot arborvitae and bushes lining that. But anyway, with that, thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, Barbara Spanbauer.
Welcome.
Hi. I agree totally with what the other two have said. But the thing, when I received the letter, I was surprised because I just thought it was a poor location for something like that with the students around the neighborhood and the schools. And then I thought, oh, there goes the value of our homes because who's going to want to live there? I think if I were a child, I'd love to have them over there to see the tower and see them climb, but I'm not that anymore. But the parking, the firemen have been training. They've been, with the jaws of life, they've been practicing on vehicles over there. And when the street is pretty crowded when they park their fire trucks, and if there's going to be more fire trucks than what's been there, it's going to be a problem. And I just don't think there's enough room to even put this located at that area on our street, on Sawyer Street. I don't think it's a big enough area. You know, if they can park the trucks inside there, that's fine, but they certainly can't use the front of that property because in spring, that's all water. It's all, you know, it's real, the water doesn't go away. They're gonna have to fix that if they're gonna use that for anything. If they're just gonna use it for looks. But I mean, the city, you know, they're trying to enhance and promote neighborhoods, but to me, that's not a very good neighborhood to have that there. I mean, when we moved in, we knew the Army Reserve was there, but that was a good thing. We enjoyed that. You know, that wasn't crowded. They parked inside there. It was not, you wouldn't even know they're there. So I just think that's not a very good location. So I know it would be better if they put the tower on the other side. You know, they're talking about how much it's going to cost if they did that. Well, it's going to cost them just as much to haul big trees in there. That's what they said they're going to do, is haul big trees in there. I mean, kids, you know, they're not going to see the tower, but everybody's going to know it's there. You know, they're going to try and get in there somehow. You know, they're going to do that. You know, just because they can't see it, they know it's there. You know, for any teenagers, they're going to try and get in there. But I just hope they are considering how many cars, how many trucks are going to be there. You know, if they have to park on the street, when those kids from high school come, they come down that street a lot. And the Lourdes people, I don't know. I just think it's just, they'd be better off when they get a bigger location where they can plant, you know, and I don't think those architects are doing a good job for the city by putting it there. I mean, if the city only paid $1 for that property, they should be able to sell it for something better in that neighborhood than this. And then find a bigger location, like outside of the city, not that far, but there's gotta be locations. No, that's all I got to say. Probably my 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
No one else is registered.
No one else is registered? All right, and let's see here. Bring this back to council for motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion.
I'm happy to start the discussion, but I'm wondering if Chief Stanley maybe wants to come up and address some of the questions, maybe perhaps first?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of council. Yeah, I would like to address several of the questions and concerns. And I know I've been keeping you updated along the way, but I first want to say that, you know, the neighbors that are here tonight and the neighbors I met last week truly have been a joy to work with. You know, that they have been very open-minded and, you know,
trying to seek win-win solutions, and I certainly appreciate that. And they have, as Mr. Zerby expressed, support the fire department. And they've made that abundantly clear. They support the fire department, and I sincerely believe that they do. So I appreciate that coming out of these discussions. So along the way, we've tried to find some accommodations and win-win solutions, and to hear some of their concerns. And there was some confusion around the plot plan that they got sent. That when the planning department sent that out, and I'm not trying to blame them, but that graphic on the north, they intended as an indicator of that was the north side of the building. And that was easily misinterpreted as that was going to be the location rather than the square indicated on the south. So Mr. Lyons apologized for that in the Planning Commission meeting, and I think they're going to look at how they can avoid that confusion in the future. So that miscommunication was certainly unintended and unfortunate, and that we never had the intent to be misleading. Reference the first gentleman talking about building another building in front of the tower. I'm going to have to seek some further clarification from him because I'm not sure what he's referring to, but we don't have any intention to put anything else in that parking lot other than the tower. That, the fencing and the trees, that, are we conflicted with that? Because, is there some advantage to having that site open so that everybody can see it and as a recruitment tool? Certainly. But that was, a solution we were trying to come to agreement with the neighbors that they said we don't want to see it. And we don't want to look at the cars that are in there that when you're doing extrication training or any other number of evolutions. So, that's really what, for us, drove that. As far as it being desirable for children to climb the fence, and maybe, but that there's a fence there now that I was informed by neighbors that kids try to climb on, and a turn to that is there's 3 feet of barbed wire at the top of it, so that keeps them from climbing the fence. We spoke Friday night about we can evaluate that over time. That there was one of the council members had expressed some concern to me about it looks a little institutional and like a jail, when we have 6-foot fence with 3 feet of barbed wire on the top. So, let's evaluate how enticing is that fence that kids want to climb it, and if we're not having any incidents with that, then let's take the barbed wire off. So we'll continue to evaluate that. The question came up about landscaping and snow plowing. I reached back out to the forestry department that they don't feel that the trees along the street there in the trellis way, or in the terrace, terrace way will be impacted by the snow plowing. And I think our constituents raised some good questions about why can't it be on the other side. And he talked about we could use the monies for the trees to move it to the other side, the trees and fencing. That the estimate for the trees from forestry is about $7,200. That we think the fencing, we're waiting for a final quote, still trying to nail that down because for some reason the fencing companies are busier than ever this year, but we're approximating that final quote being around $34,000. So you're looking at $42,000 to $45,000 maybe in materials for the fencing, the trees, the 40 by 40 concrete slab, because we're going to be able to do much of that work with city resources. That's another $8,000, $8,500. That, so you're talking about maybe in the neighborhoods of $50,000. For us to re-engineer the drainage and to bring the construction and concrete work up to the level it needs to be on that north side, you're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars, by estimation of the architects. So part of that is it's cost prohibitive. And that's one of the things that when I met with the neighbors Friday, they asked, is there a possibility, could you revisit with the architects about what's the potential to move it to the north side? So, I promised them I would. I have not had a chance to close the loop with them yet, but talked to them first thing Monday morning and said, we've got some legitimate concerns. They've expressed, the neighbors are expressing some interest in this and would like to reconsider whether it can be put on the north side. He went on to to give me a number of reasons why that was a bad idea, and that they would recommend against that. And I asked him to summarize that in a letter, which I received later Monday evening, which I shared with council this morning, talking about why that isn't a great idea. So while I'm very empathetic with the neighbors' concerns, and have appreciated them bringing them forward and trying to work with us, that I shared with them Friday night of I hope you're empathetic with my situation, which I think they were. Of I've got an obligation to protect 66,000 people, just like the council does, and to train 110 firefighters, and we're trying to find the best possible solution around that with the resources that we have available to us. And to the question of why don't we sell it, I mean, that if council so chose, that could be a direction that was given. But one of the things I talked about with a couple of the neighbors Friday night is, then if you don't potentially like this option, you may like the next option much less. And maybe Mr. Davis can speak to potential development there on Sawyer. But there's a probability that now your front driveway is the Taco Bell drive-through that's open all hours of the night, and there's a strip mall there with increased traffic. And so I mean, there's lots of different moving parts to this, and that what I have stressed to the neighbors around their parking concerns and things about hours of operation, that they have my commitment that we will regulate that through department policy. I have made it abundantly clear in my organization already that they are not to park on their street. That, no fire apparatus, no ambulances, no training vehicles are to be parked on National. And if that's the case, I hope that I've established a relationship with the neighbors that they would find me approachable, they would let me know, and I will deal with that swiftly and judiciously. That, so I've expressed, to them, I'll express to you as well, that we want to be good neighbors, and we want to create a training center that they have some pride and ownership of, that they are proud to say, that's my training center, that's our neighborhood's training center. We want them to be involved, that we want them to be prideful that we're there, and we want to be good neighbors. So my closing statement, I guess, would be that I hope council gives us the opportunity to follow through with that. And to be able to be good neighbors to the houses across the street, National, and the surrounding community of the schools and the businesses, that we want to do a good job, we want to have good relations. So with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
2 questions, Chief. Will that tower be locked so that if someone did manage to climb the fence and get over there, that access to the climbing up the tower would not be easy?
It really does not have the construction, the structure to lock anything. That's why part of the reason why this is a desirable location, because it's already fenced, with high security fencing. But very similar to a scaffold, there's no gate to lock on it, so people could climb it should they choose.
And the second question is, you mentioned that FGM Architects sent a letter giving the reasons as to why it's a bad idea for the tower to be on the other. Could you go into a little bit of detail on that?
Absolutely, I'd be happy to. That one of the issues is the way the drainage works on that side of the building. That's engineered drainage. There's all the swales come from that side out into on the other side, on the Sawyer side of the fence, into a runoff area. So that would have to be completely redone. And what the FGM was indicating is that's going to be very, very costly. And Mr. Zerbe is correct when he said there is some existing blacktop there. And that blacktop most likely has a very high rating, much like the foundation of the parking lot to the south. But everything off of those narrow little like streets would have to be redone. That's, you can't just pour asphalt across where that grass was. It would all have to be excavated. All the topsoil would have to be taken out. You'd have to have the right type of fill put in, and extensive work done done to bring that up to the specifications that the tower could sit there and the fire trucks could drive on. So that would add exponentially to the cost. That, we phased this or introduced this concept as phases of, phase one is the tower, and we've focused on that, but there's, the ultimate goal is to turn the whole site into a training center. Well, the architects came up with a master plan based on the existing building of where classrooms and different resources would be located inside that building. In the old rifle range that's on the south side of that building would be what's called a dirty classroom. So not a setting like this where, we're in tables and chairs. It's where we would come in wearing our protective gear inside, and be able to drag hoses around and do things in there. We want that to be in close proximity to the training tower. So now if it's on the other side of the building, you'd have to completely reconfigure the building and, add more cost of renovations and things like that. And there is also, as one of the gentlemen pointed out, they have a plan for 3 apparatus bays to be in what's a 1 garage door operation now, so that we would have our training vehicles, our reserve vehicle, fire trucks out there. The turning radius necessary for the fire trucks to either pull out or to back in would be problematic, because now you've got the drill tower sitting in the middle of that space. So that was just a few of the reasons they highlighted why that they did not recommend that.
Councilmember Allison Osby.
Thank you, Mayor. Chief, do you have an idea of how often during the week there would be training, or how often during the month, and maybe perhaps what those hours might be?
Yeah, that we generally divide our training into 2 blocks. So 8:30 to 11 and 1:30 to 3:30, 4. So the training doesn't really occur outside of that. So we're not going to do 6 o'clock in the morning training. We're not going to do midnight training, or even 7 o'clock at night training routinely. That training usually happens Tuesday through Thursday on our schedule. Now, and we discussed this with the neighbors, because they had a similar question. Through the winter, those opportunities are probably going to diminish dramatically, to use that site. They said, oh great, now you'll be out here every day during the summer. Well, yes and no, because while we have to make hay while the sun shines, literally, that a lot of that training is things that would not be conducted there. That we have to do dive training, we have to do airport training, we have to do boat training. Clearly those blocks of time are not going to occur there. So I said it's going to be broke up a little bit. And the concern may be that, well, I'm going to say that now because I'm being held to the fire about it, and then as soon as we approve it, that we're going to be there morning, noon, and night. I am contractually bound by agreement with the labor union of when their workday is, when we can do training, and I don't see them taking too kindly to me having them out there at midnight, or even at in the evening hours or the weekends.
So no pyro activity at midnight.
Right. Yeah. That I would have larger issues with labor grievances if that were to happen. So even if I wanted to, which I don't, that we couldn't get away with that. Also, you hear training tower, fire training tower, you're going to be burning stuff over there. As you saw from the picture, it's not enclosed, it's not rated for any fire evolutions. But I also shared with the neighbors Friday, we're not going to burn other things. We're not going to set cars on fires to practice, or dumpsters or things. We're not going to burn anything on that side of the structure.
Thanks, Chief.
Mm-hmm.
Anyone else? Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you, Mayor. Could you just give some of the history of why this site was selected specifically?
Yeah, absolutely. In, I believe it was 2018, the direction was for a staffing study from council to be a staffing and deployment study to be conducted. That was finished in 2019. One of the things in their scope of work was to identify a need, whether we needed a training center and where that should be located. So they met with with our staff, they met with city staff. I know Mr. Roloff met with them, Mr. Davis met with them, and out of their recommendation was, based on the properties that are available, properties that we own, the existing structures and infrastructure that exists, that training center should be located at that armory site. Like I said, part of that was around the structure, the bones of the structure. It's military installation. It's built like a bomb shelter. They said the bones are still very good. And they said also was basically used as a training center. There was a classroom, there was offices, things like that. So you're much better off to repurpose than to try to build from new. And then, I know that the question and concern has come up about, hey, it's right in the middle of town. That's advantageous as well. Because for us, with the way our resources are deployed, if we put that out to one extreme end of town, those resources are in service. So they're still going to respond to calls. Well, if I have everybody up on Snell Road and the call is down here at the city building, terrible response times. So having it centrally located is very desirable. That also its proximity to the central garage. That they have to go there for fuel, they have to go there to get their vehicles serviced. The fact that it's very close and centrally located as well is very beneficial. And we also have plans that once the training center is completed, that our quartermaster supply would be there. So if I need to go fill air bottles after a fire, I need to go change out my protective equipment because it's contaminated, it's centrally located. I can do that there. Same for, we stock our own cleaning supplies and janitorial supplies and toilet paper. Once again, centrally located, I can go by there, do my training, get my gas, get a case of toilet paper, change out my protective equipment, and off I go one-stop shopping. So that centralized location was recommended because of organizational and operational efficiency as well.
Just another question. Where's the closest other fire station to that location?
16. Yeah, probably closest would be Station 16 on Washburn, right by the water tower.
Okay.
Across from Burger King.
Okay. All right, thank you. Any other discussion or questions?
I have discussion,
Councilor
but
Yes.
not for Chief. So
Okay.
if anybody else has questions for Chief.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Councilmember Allison Osby.
Thank you, Mayor. So I couldn't be more pleased at the input from the neighbors. I couldn't be more pleased with Chief Stanley, the interaction that took place and the information that came out. And I completely understand where the neighbors are coming from, because I want to say it was probably approximately 7-10 years ago, one block over from my neighborhood was like one singular, older home with a lot of acreage sold, zoned commercial. And so we knew it was going to be developed. And I was really not fired up about having a assisted living facility there, or anything there other than what had been there. But then I looked at had some discussions of, for that particular use of property, what could go there. In a odd kind of way, I'm considering this neighborhood and what could be down the road. So like in our situation with our immediate neighborhood, we ended up getting a facility in which has been cared for, it's groomed immaculately. They have 24-hour service because they have CNAs and RNs, coming in and out. So all the things that, we thought about ended up really working out well, because I'll tell you, I will take that over having a, an auto supply store, or, some other type of retail store, or fast food where you've got bigger issues like the smell of French fries, or big garbage dumpsters, that don't necessarily smell great when it's August and July. So those are things that I think about, and at this point, I don't see this council selling this piece of property, but I don't know what a council is going to do next year or 10 years down the road. I ideally would like to have the tower on the north side, but to the chief's point, $8,700 of prep work is a heck of a lot different than hundreds of thousands of dollars. And so you know, I would ask the neighbors maybe to think about it in a little bit different manner. You know, I would like to think that city, the council, and the staff is going to make every attempt to be a phenomenal neighbor. But the other thing is, too, is I look at it as, wow, whether you have a neighborhood of children, neighborhood of seniors, and everything in between, one of the things that our community or the city of Oshkosh really, really is a bonus and a plus is that our firefighters aren't just firefighters. They're also trained paramedics. So in a situation where, regardless of what goes on, you know, if it's somebody that's not supposed to be doing something regarding the fence or somebody right in that immediate area, I would think that would be a real asset to have that type of quality employee there, literally kind of right in your front yard, backyard. So I would just maybe kind of ask, even though it may not be how you want it to be, that is an upside of having the fire department there potentially 3 days a week. So for that, I will be supporting it, but please know for the neighborhood, the residents that attended, I'm hearing everything you're saying. Again, was right there with you 7 to 10 years ago. And I hope that you'll continue to work well with city staff if there are issues moving forward. So thank you.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, very well said. I echo everything my fellow council member said, but I also want to point out that moving the tower, in addition to cost, it was pointed out to us that it would have to change the layout, and the layout would be less purposeful. And what I take that to mean is the ultimate value of the training center, maximizing the effectiveness of the training to our firefighters, is dependent on ensuring this facility is laid out in a way that works for the fire department. And I realize that's a small consolation for the neighbors, but again, I'll echo what Council Member Allison Osby said about the city being good neighbors.
Councilmember Mugarauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. You know, to the residents in that area, I know you guys spoke last meeting and you interacted with us via, phone and email and with the chief and to Councilmember Allison Osby's point, I like how you guys have gone about, communicating with city staff. Appreciating the situation they're in, trying to improve a site. To the one gentleman's point, you're right, it's a 40-foot tower. You ain't gonna cover up a 40-foot tower. But we can, and it seems as though city staff is doing a very good job of trying to accommodate as much as possible in that space in terms of visual breaks and changing policies and trying to work with the neighbors to be good neighbors with them. So I'll be supportive of the location. On face value, upon seeing it, I had the same exact reactions as most of the neighbors. Why is this not out in an industrial park? Why is it not somewhere less residential? But upon learning, from the chief and in regards to training tactics and training protocols and what's best for this community, a central location is what's best. And that's going to lead to mostly residential spaces in this city. So with that, I'll support where it's going to go, and I appreciate everything that the neighbors have brought to this to try to improve that site as much as possible too. So thank you.
Councilmember Allison Osby.
Thank you. And if I may bring up just one more point, thank you for bringing up the efficiency, because yes, that's obviously an excellent reason. And to Mr. Mugarauer's point, why is it so important to be within the central city? The reason being is every year there is a substantial amount, if you look at the percentage of uptick of calls that goes to our fire department. So if we have to send them out, and we have to send them to Appleton or somewhere else, and something arises beyond our normal uptick, and when I mean normal uptick per year, it's been, Chief, you can correct me if it's wrong, I mean, it's been different. It's been double digits and it's been triple digits. And so having them centrally located in the city is at the best interest of our residents, to have that as an advantage. So when we talk about Central City, it isn't just, getting to the garage, that's important, but there is an actual constituent need, in which is the driving force, because to Mr. Mugarauer's point, it would be great to put it way, out of town, out of sight, out of mind. But again, for all the reasons why we discussed, that's, I think, what has led us to our decision.
And I'd just like to make a couple of comments, and that is, initially when I first saw the schematics in that, it is not what one would expect. And I certainly appreciate the residents and those who live in that neighborhood speaking out and also working with the chief. In this situation, I don't think there's a way to please everyone, but I think we can all agree none of us really want to see a telephone pole or an electric pole or box in front of our properties either. But we need them. They're our infrastructure. And I know there's been some discussion about not wanting to look at these things. I guess I have a little bit different view. The pride of the professionalism and the multi-skilled, cross-functional fighters and paramedics is something that is somewhat unique to our community. And I think that we can be proud of the fact that they are at that level of professionalism and training, and that can actually be a showcase. And I kind of look at that as another station that we're adding with the added capacity of increasing that response time during those times when folks are there training, as well as keeping them in the city where we need them. So I'll also be supporting this. All right, let's please take the roll.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next, we have new resolutions. Resolution 20-321, approve purchase of fire training drill tower from Affordable Drill Towers LLC for Oshkosh Fire Department, $83,955. Is there anyone registered to speak on this item?
No one is registered.
Back to council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion? Any further discussion? Please take the roll.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next is Resolution 20-322, approve general development plan and specific implementation plan for a fire training facility at 221 North Sawyer Street. Plan Commission recommends approval. Do we have anyone else registered?
No, we do not.
Back to council.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Please take the roll.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next is Resolution 20-323, amend council, board, and commission rules. Is there anyone registered to speak on this item?
No one is registered.
All right, back to council for motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on this item? All right, please take the roll.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Next is 20-324, provide direction to staff relating to reconstruction of 9th Avenue from Oakwood Road to Linden Oaks Drive. I know we have some emails that we received in advance of the meeting this evening. If the clerk could record those. We have Michael and Sarah Gumto, Ginger and Tom Gurman, Jim and Lori Clavino, and Sally and Lee Poplazny. Is there anyone else registered to speak?
Yes. Raymond Yearwood,
We're not in favor of having an 80-foot right-of-way here. I talked to several neighbors, but best option that we could come up with would be option number 3. That'd be the same as Oakwood between 9th and 20th Street. But we have a little bit of a problem with the bike lanes. I walk a lot on Oakwood Road, and there's more bikes using the parking lane than use the bike lane. The bike lane is out by the main street, and apparently people are just afraid to ride their bikes out there. Like I said, there's more. I've seen 3 bikes today, and 2 of them were in the parking, one was in the bike lane. Even Sunday morning at 6 o'clock, I seen 3 bicycles on the sidewalk going up. And like I say, with option 3, there's no turn lane, and I don't think that we need a turn lane. There's no turn lanes on Oakwood, and Oakwood is more of a main highway also. So we are, the neighbors that I've talked to said that option 3 would be the better option for that. One thing we would like to know though, one of the cons on option 3, you'll have to remove the parking in the future. Why would the parking have to be removed in the future off of that street if you went with that? That's what we'd like to know, one reason. That's all I've got to say.
Thank you. Is there anyone else registered, Pam?
No one else is registered.
Back to council for a motion and a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion, perhaps Mr. Robbie would like to, and Mr. Collins?
As Mr. Robbie comes up for functional purposes, the mayor and I discussed this. All 4 options are in the resolution, so the appropriate motion would be to delete 3 of them and leave the desired one that you want. So that's just, that's about all we have. And Mr. Robbie's back here, so he can.
Or construct an additional one. So,
That is absolutely correct.
so the one thing that's missing on that too is there's do nothing. That's another option, is to do nothing, right? So we have 4 options. One of the neighbors spoke referencing 3. I think some of our emails, other neighbors were requesting option 4. So yes, the way we'll need to do this is that elimination of 3. Would anyone like to ask further questions, Mr. Robbie or Mr. Collins?
Well, it might be appropriate maybe to answer a couple of the gentleman's questions. There were some questions regarding.
He was asking about why the parking would be removed
Yes.
in the future?
Right, in the future.
The city's comprehensive plan requires arterial streets to be 4 lanes of traffic, 2 travel lanes basically in each direction. So at 48 feet, at such time as it does become an arterial street, that would, in order to stay in compliance with the city's approved plans, would require the removal of the parking in that area.
I've got a couple of questions.
Councilmember Mugarauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As long as you're on that topic, so once it converts into an arterial, actually, let me back up. When do you expect it to convert into an arterial, given, current numbers? What's your expectation, roughly?
My expectation would probably be, pending, certainly the construction of the planned west side arterial would change a lot of these estimates, but I would expect maybe in the 15 to 20 year range, its classification and its traffic would warrant the upgrade.
And knowing the current land uses, future land annexations into the city of Oshkosh, limits from the town of Algoma, is it Utica is the next corner over there too, possibly. Our development, the city of Oshkosh's development ends at Clairville for the next quite a long time. So,
well, the automatic attachments from the town of Algoma.
Correct.
Would go to the center line of Clairville Road in 2023, and everything beyond that would be 2043. But that would not preclude property owners from asking to attach early.
Of course. So, I live in that area, so I travel this section, many of the streets the gentleman referred to, Oakwood and 20th, and this section as well. I think the last thing we want is for this section to look like 20th Street west of Oakwood. It's a 4-lane highway. It is a speedway in front of a school and YMCA. It's the last thing that any neighbor would want in their newly constructed road. So I'm in full support of doing option 3. I'm not a fan of having 2 bike lanes. I'm not a fan of having the bike lanes on that road at all, but I'll take them. One last question, though, before we get into more comments. Current right-of-way stands at what?
It varies between 66 and 80 feet, depending on where you are. Some of the newer subdivisions that have developed over the last 20, 30 years have included additional right-of-way dedication, so it varies.
But and I know I'm going to hold you to it, sorry. The section closest to 9th Street, that's the oldest part. That's the ones, those are those homes that are going to be closest to the road, not necessarily the ones that are farther west. It does feel, to the neighbors' points, to the ones I've spoke with, to all the emails, it does feel like we're taking a lot of yard away. It turns out a fair amount of it is already in the right-of-way. We're taking a few extra feet on each side. Is that a fair assessment?
7 feet at the most.
Yeah. So it's going to look massively different. However, much of it is already within the right-of-way and within the construction area for us. But with that said, before more discussion, I'm fully in support of option 3 myself, so as we continue to go on.
Councilmember Ford.
Yeah, I'm good with option 3 as well, and I think I disagree with Councilmember Mugerauer on bike lanes. Just looking at our bike and ped committee, some of the best practices and recommendations that came out of that planning report was for bike lanes. So I do think that is important to keep in mind. But yeah, I'm good with 3.
Other council members, Councilmember Erickson.
Thank you. I'm also supportive of option 3, kind of doing my own tally of emails that we received and phone calls. I think the majority of people supported option 3. And, similar to Councilmember Ford's comment, as someone who bikes frequently, I appreciate having bike lanes, especially on that side of the city. It does make it feel safer. So,
thank you. Deputy Mayor Krause.
I would also support option 3. It kind of gives everything to everybody. It's still parking on both sides, where option 2 would be favorable as well, but it's only parking on one side. The bike lanes are there, the travel lanes are there. So option 3 seems like the most reasonable of the 4 choices to me.
Councilmember Peschel.
Sure, I have actually one question for Mr. Robbie.
Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I haven't driven out Oakwood from 9th from 9th to 20th. How does option 3 compare to how that's been set up? Because if I remember correctly, in the last year, we added bike lanes and parking lanes on that stretch as well, correct?
Yeah, this is Jim. It actually would be option 3 would be very similar to Oakwood. You'd have an 8-foot parking lane on each side, and then you'd have the bike lane of 5 feet on each side, and then you'd have the 12-foot travel lane. So you're right, it'd be very similar to Oakwood between 9th and 20th.
And I thank you for that. So, and I think that's where I feel I'm really comfortable with option 3, because it creates a level of consistency that's already being utilized in that area. So I would support option 3.
And if I could just clarify then, in reading option 3 here, it says the 48-foot from face of curb to face of curb, providing the 2 11-foot wide driving lanes, 2 5-foot wide bike lanes, 2 8-foot wide parking lanes, together with 16 feet of terrace and sidewalk. So does that 16 feet of terrace and sidewalk, can you just clarify, so that would be 11 of terrace and 5?
It's 10.5 feet of terrace. The other half a foot is the curb head, and then the 5 feet of sidewalk.
Okay, all right. And I too will be supporting option 3. Did you speak?
3 has been my favorite.
Okay.
I actually am super impressed that we're all on the same page, so.
This is excellent. And thank you to everyone who did give their input, and thank you to the staff for working with those residents as well. So I need a motion to amend and reducing options 1, 2, and 4.
So moved.
Second.
All right, so let's call the roll on amending this to delete options 1, 2, and 4 from 20-324.
Krause,
Aye.
Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
So do we need to go ahead and move just option 3? Okay.
As amended, yes.
All right, so I need a motion and a second
So
to
moved.
adopt.
We
Second.
have it.
All right, any further discussion? Please call the roll.
Aye.
Krause, Mugrower,
Aye.
Erickson,
Aye.
Peschel,
Aye.
Ford,
Aye.
Allison Osby,
Aye.
Palmieri,
Aye.
carried 7.
Thank you. And our final new resolution is 20-325, approve special event Clint Laird Calvary Sunrise to utilize the Leach Amphitheater for the Vision for Heartland event, August 28th, 2020. Staff recommends denial of permit. And do we have anyone registered to speak on this item?
Yes, we do. Michael Braun.
Welcome.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to address the council. I was impressed when right before we did the Pledge of Allegiance, you talked about as we gather tonight, we are grateful for the good things that have come to this city. May our decisions always be ones that are for the well-being of all whom we govern. And I am in favor of the council granting Mr. Laird and Calvary Sunrise this permit. We're in unprecedented times here. Obviously, I mean, we've had Country USA, Rock Fest, Life Fest, majority of Water Fest have all been canceled. And I'm not going to throw numbers. All of us have been inundated with numbers nightly on TV with COVID, but I'd like to address the mental health of those of the Oshkosh citizens, the need for something positive, something uplifting, something good. We were under a safer at home order, had a lot of our lives restricted, even saw some businesses closed, never to reopen. COVID has affected us in ways that will forever change the way we live. A year ago, this request probably wouldn't have even raised an eyebrow. Now, things like sanitizer stations, social distancing, reduced capacities have become standard lingo. Nightly news was scary enough before COVID hit this nation. This event will hopefully bring a breath of fresh life to the community. Messages of hope, comfort, and encouragement followed by a band. It would be a wonderful way to bring the summer to a close and give the local area something to look forward to. We've worked tirelessly with city officials, Ray Moore, Mark Roloff, and Kathy Snell, to address the concerns brought on by COVID, and believe we've reached an amicable win-win situation that will meet all of the requirements while still offering an event that should have a lasting positive effect on the city of Oshkosh and surrounding communities. If approved, it would help keep Oshkosh's motto of being the event city alive. I will personally be grateful for the opportunity to work tirelessly to keep everyone who attends safe, healthy, and happy. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else registered to speak?
No one else is registered, but I just wanted to note for the record that we did receive an email on that Patricia Dreyer Hallquist.
Yes, we do have an email, and I believe there were several others leading up to this. Patricia Dwyer Hallquist is requesting or supporting denial of the permit. All right. Back to council then for motion in a second.
So moved.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Mugrower.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'll get it started. Actually, let me ask a question of City Manager Roloff first, and then I'll take it back. Obviously, staff recommends denial. Can you give us and the people at home a synopsis of why you recommend the denial?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. And Mr. Mauer can probably come up, and we do have Ms. Snell available virtually. Essentially, it came down to the numbers that were proposed in the application. There was an estimate of 1,000 to 3,000 people. I had an opportunity to talk with Mr. Schra, along with your Mr. Schra here, Mike, and other times your rep and then your Mike. So, but we had a great discussion about some of their concerns and some of their experiences or their observations from similar events that have been getting held around the state. And we suggested to them that the number was really kind of what got us concerned. There's a number of upwards of 3,000 for a facility as large as the Leach would create virtually no social distancing. So we were trying to come up with something that we felt would be give us some number that would be acceptable. And so the number we came up with was we pretty much took a 6-foot radius circle is about 113 square feet. We divided that into the total square footage of the Leach footprint, and we came up with roughly 750. We rounded it to 750. So that was pretty much how we did it, figuring that what we recognize it, as Mr. Schra said, there'll be families that'll be, huddling together because that's what families do, and there'll be others that'll be spread out. So the 750 we felt was would be able to accommodate. The other thing that's very important for council to consider is this is the first large event that's been requested of the Leach this year. Everybody else is canceled. Whatever council does really sets the standard for the remainder of the emergency, the remainder of the year. So that's why we were a little concerned initially with that high number. But based on the discussions, as Mr. Brown said, we've kicked around that 750 number. Ray, anything to add?
No, I think just the one thing I want to add is we have had and we have been requested for events that are smaller, 500 and under, and events that size don't require city services, extraordinary services. So it's simply a Leach rental. Again, as the city manager stated, when we looked at these numbers, 1 to 3,000 being a free public event, not knowing for sure where that number would end up, and just, again, looking at social distance and coming up with something that's been used in other areas. And again, recognizing people are going to come with people from their household, but we really don't have a mathematical equation that can help us with that. So
I appreciate that. Throughout all this since early March, previous council and this one too, I believe has affirmed the message to city staff to do everything possible to be as flexible as possible, to be adaptable as possible to our residents, to our business community, to allow this community to function and to function in different ways. And I see that this is another opportunity for us to be flexible in that and to be adaptable, that we provide a framework for a special event to decide then on their own if it's worth for them to A, host the event financially, or B, if their patrons or if their customers would then want to attend it. We at all costs should stay away from denying events just for flat out the reason of denying them. That it should be the people's choice as well as the organizer's opportunity to make sure that they put on a safe and fair event. And if they can't do so, then that's our opportunity to step in and address that and make sure that they conform. So I appreciate that city staff has continued discussions with the applicant and representatives of the church, and I definitely am in support of putting approving this with some restrictions. One of them being, put a hard limit on the amount of attendees, and it seems as though staff is comfortable with that number of 750. I think that's a reasonable number. I think I could have gone to 1,000, but I get their math and I will respect that, and I won't just pick out an arbitrary number, but I'll respect the math of 750. I'm understanding that the precedent it sets for other events, it may be Waterfest, it may be another musical venture that wants to come out there. So I'm mindful of the precedent it sets, but I think this is, it's fair, it's appropriate, and I definitely would be supportive of putting that hard cap on there. And if staff thinks it's, necessary that we write in terms of, hand sanitizing stations and extra wash stations, any of those types of restrictions that they would deem necessary, I think those are reasonable to include. I think it places the risk on the, on the end user, the person who chooses to attend, as well as the organizer. It doesn't place us at an increased risk as long as we're, making sure that they're following our guidelines and within those occupancy permits and the hard limit on how many people can attend. So.
Yes, Mr. Maurer.
I just want to address one of the comments that Mr. Mugauer made. If you take a look at the draft resolution, item A talks about we would require any event, basically, whatever number we put on that, to comply with the recommendations from the Winnebago County Health Department as far as social distancing, hand sanitizing, and some of those things that you addressed.
Yep.
Councilmember Ellison Asby. Oh, I was just
If you-
going to say, I see Mr. Gearing is still here. Would it be okay, would you be able to weigh in a little bit on some of the larger events in the county as to what other numbers or restrictions or recommendations are being made by the health department?
Mayor, may I ask one question before?
Yes, Councilmember Ellison Asby.
Is there opportunity for overflow outside of just that leach area?
We had some of those discussions, and similar to what we are doing at the zoo, because we have a limited number that we're allowing in there, we do have people lining up outside the gate. We have placed social distancing markings to try to encourage that. So doing something like that and monitoring as people come and go, I think we could support. They had requested possibly expanding the event out in the Riverside Park and having a screen and so forth. We didn't have a chance, because that wasn't part of their initial application, to fully vet that through all of our staff members. So we weren't comfortable at this point saying we could go that route.
And then I don't know if staff already had a conversation since the application came in about whether the group was willing to, reconsider their numbers, if this was an estimate. And then, if you would, Mr. Guerin, are there recommended numbers for this size of event and attendance and space in the county or for surrounding counties?
Yeah, so in general, most large events have been canceled. We've been discouraging mass gatherings. Many long-standing events that have been here for decades have elected to cancel because they just didn't see a practical way to ensure the safety of the public in running those events. And I don't know a lot about this event in particular. However, there are certain situations that present a much higher level of risk. One, having this event in an area that doesn't have seats, where you're not going to be able to, have reasonable control over movement. You're also going to have live music. Live music will attract people, obviously, to the stage area. It'll be very difficult to maintain distancing. Live music also encourages, well, one, it's loud, and it encourages people to have to talk loudly in order to communicate with one another, and we know that's an additional risk factor. And then ultimately singing as well. People singing, there's been many examples, and papers already written about how many people become infected when people are singing in close range to one another. It just takes one person to infect dozens of others. And so these are the types of events that we've discussed with, other event promoters this year, and we really would discourage any large event that is not going to be able to assure social distancing. It's not going to be able to assure any kind of masking. It's going to be selling beverages and food, which will make it harder to stay masked, and then live music will be encouraging people to speak more loudly, to sing more loudly, or to sing. And those are all risk factors for any group that gets together. So, I would discourage, given the current situation that we're in, I would discourage the council from from approving it. I think if the event, from what I know, if the event coordinator can offer some, hold a service, have places marked off where people can sit, use a projection screen, eliminate live music. Those types of things would all make this event much more safe for the community.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor, Mr. Brown or one of the other representatives may want to, I think you were asking a question about.
Yeah, I was wondering whether or not there is an opportunity to adjust the application numbers. I think initially it was 1,000 to 3,000 that was estimated. Pastor Laird?
Yes, we were able to, I believe, amend that application down to 750. And so we want to work with you guys as much as possible. Mr. Garion had mentioned, marking out spacing. We plan to put chalk, to use chalk paint to mark out social distance spacing. He mentioned approaching the stage. We plan to have a barricade up there so that during the music, people won't be approaching the stage at that time. So, we want to work with whatever's going to make this event work for the town. We want to work with you.
Councilmember Allison Osby.
Would you be allowing participants to bring in chairs for seating?
Absolutely. We're going to be encouraging people to bring in lawn chairs.
Councilmember Mugarauer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Through a conversation I had with and if you wouldn't mind, maybe you can confirm this part, if you can stay up here. I had a conversation with Mr. Schra earlier as well. This is a newer travel. How would you best describe this event?
Sure, it's something new to 2020. And,
yeah.
There's a pastor that we're affiliated with out of Southern California who's just felt that he has a message to share with people here in the Midwest, in the heartland. And we started that down in Madison on the 10th down there, and that event went off very well down there. And the turnout on that was only about a couple hundred people or so. And they've continued down into Illinois, and I think they might be over in Indiana now. But we're actually the last stop where they're coming back up this direction.
And so that was actually something that stood out from my conversation. Was this started in Madison? The first one was there. Yes. Only a couple hundred people. That it was basically a wide range, not a guess, but a guess in terms of that initial 1,000 to 3,000. It could be, but that currently, at least the first one, a couple hundred, as well as for those that are keeping track, Madison allowed it, and Madison is under strict guidelines at the moment, and yet that community decided to approve it as well. And they're some of the most strict ones in the state at the moment with their choices down there. So
wasn't that in a church though, a private building?
It was. That was on a private property inside a church. That's
so,
correct. But along the tour, there are many of the stops where they are using public parks and amphitheaters, very similar.
So appreciate that. Obviously it sounds like the 750 could even be on the high end. It could even be, it could be less than that. Obviously, hopefully you have a positive turnout, but even 750 could be a wish.
Yeah, we're going to be doing Thursday night, so the 27th, down in Fond du Lac, also working with, we're at Buttermilk Creek Park, and I believe Pastor Heath Perry from Calvary Cross down there, he's organizing that event. And down there, I know they're expecting like 300 or so. Is kind of the projection that they're putting at. And really it was a stab in the dark. We have no idea how many people are going to show up. From what we're being told, Fond du Lac is going to allow that event to happen.
Real quick question, and then Deputy Mayor Krause. Will the speaker be quarantining when he comes in from California?
I don't have an answer to that. He would be coming up, we're bringing him up, he'll be staying in a hotel room and then brought to there.
I'm assuming he's coming with a group of people, maybe too?
I think there's 3 or 4 people traveling with him, yes.
Deputy Mayor Krause.
Thank you. I appreciate your organization wanting to come and have this event in Oshkosh. We welcome these kind of events in normal situations. I also appreciate you guys wanting to move down your number to 750, but there's no way to enforce that. These are social events, they're concerts. People are not going to sit in little squares with their chairs. I mean, people are social. They're going to gather, they're going to get in lines, they're going to not have masks. I mean, it's not social distancing. You're not social distancing right now without a mask on. I I mean, this building is requiring people, encouraging to wear masks. And the first thing a lot of people do is just take them right off. So I mean, right now, to have this kind of event is negligent. So I will not be supporting a 100 people event.
Other council members?
Oh, sorry. That's fine.
Councilmember Ford.
No, I was
Oh.
yes, I was saying.
Councilmember Erickson?
Sure. As much as I would love to see this type of event, and I'm supportive of what you said, Mr. Braun, with, we're in need of some mental health, something to look forward to this year. I cannot, in good faith, support this year. I hope, next year we're in a different situation, but it's tough. And knowing how many other events have had to cancel, I think, we just have to be fair and know that hopefully next year we're in a position that we can have something like this.
Councilmember Ford?
Yeah.
And then Mr. Mauer has something else?
I think I'm putting the city manager on the spot here, so if you can't answer the question, no worries. But I'm trying to think of the biggest event that we've kind of had since the COVID outbreak, and to me, it's the spontaneous protests at the sundials. Do we have any idea how large those have gotten?
I think the number that the police department had given me was about 300.
About 300, okay. I know I've had citizens ask me, well, how come it's okay and safe to have protests where people aren't social distancing at the town square, but we can't have a religious gathering? And my answer to that is, this is a city-owned facility. It's a place where we as city council have responsibility over it. We have the ability to control it. And I appreciate you guys coming here, but I just can't in good conscience, with all the unknowns right now, support a gathering in a public building like this.
Councilmember Allison Osby, and I'm sorry, Mr. Mauer.
Ms. Ryan, did you want to speak
Go ahead.
first? Okay. So, I really don't want to get into what type of an event it is. It's simply an event. Of what nature it is, I hope nobody's looking at it from that point of view. It's strictly an event. And we already know, and I've heard from other folks in the cities that have, or in the city that, do have some gatherings that want to go on. And to your point, the bottom line is, they're willing to work. They're willing to work within guidelines, and they're being transparent in applying for a permit and having some type of control on the event, because they certainly don't have to do that. The way things are set up, they certainly can go, and although it's advised not to have mass gatherings, technically they can go wherever they want. So, I don't want to get into a debate of, well, we had demonstrations and now we have a Christian event. That is not our role. We are nonpartisan. And so I'm going to support it because I think they're doing it the right way. And if we have to adapt to a new normal, we have to figure out what that is. I am not in favor of necessarily spreading anything. But again, we have activities and we have gatherings going on, and we can either have a part and a say in it, or we don't. So I guess that from my standpoint, I'm going to go along with this and I guess helps try to set what will probably come down the pike in further events between now and fall that want to be contained.
I just wanted to make one comment that we didn't share, I don't think, and kind of to Mr. Mugrauer's point. What we have done with this event and one that may be coming in the future is we have offered a 50% reduction in the leach rental rate. Typically, it's $1,500 for the day, and because we are restricting the numbers, we did advise the organizer that we'd reduce that to $750 for the day as well.
This is really difficult because there are so many people that are hungry for our old, production of events with music and food and gathering. Everybody is hungry to feed their souls and their bellies, right? Messages of hope. And in the content, I agree with Councilmember Allison Osby that regardless of the content, we have science and health advice that tell us that these kinds of events are not helpful to our situation But in any event, we've had to cancel some of our own events that the city hosts. And so I'm going to have to say that I'm not going to be able to support this at this time in these conditions.
Mayor Palmieri, may I?
Councilmember Peschel, please.
All right, thank you. I want to thank the group for bringing forward the proposal, because what they've done is they've created a discourse for us to have in thinking about this and moving forward. And so I'm very appreciative of that. And not only that, it's a public discourse. So that's, I think that's something to laud. So thank you for that. I struggle with approving these types of events at this point, mainly because I know that there's other events, large events that haven't taken place in our community that are just as important, have great messages, and I just want to make an example of one of those is high school graduations. Those did not take place this year because we could not find a solid way to say you're going to be safe if you come to these events. And that's what brings me back to this is that we have no solid way of knowing and understanding that people are going to be safe doing there. Do we need to have the dialogue? Absolutely. I'm not there yet to supporting it. So, but again, thank you for bringing it forward.
Councilmember Ellison Osby.
Sure. Thank you, Madam Mayor. One just final comment is, at the very beginning of this meeting, the mayor did a proclamation and had some very wise words in our communication and also our treatment of those regarding masks. So, I think it was an interesting proclamation, but I think some of what we could do is maybe perhaps reflect back on some of the words that she mentioned during that moving forward.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes.
Again, this is an event that we would really like to bring to the city. And the most important thing to me is the speaking portion of it. So in many of the comments about singing and such and having that, or that band at the end there, if we drop that off, would you guys be more in favor? And really the band is what we had thought would draw the larger portion of the crowd. So if we adjust those numbers down and just have the speaker with maybe, he's traveling with a classical guitarist who's up there alone, and some other people who would just be doing some small songs or whatever, but not the band. But if we were to drop that portion off, would that help? Even if we come under, I think someone over here had said if we're under 500, then that even changes the dynamic of the application. Is that correct?
Yes, if an event does not require city services such as police, fire staff, and so forth, it's not required to go through the special event process. As far as serving food and alcohol, if you were serving alcohol, that would take it up another level.
We will not be.
And
I mean, even if food, we don't have to serve food,
Councilmember Ford and then Mugrauer.
I'm just pointing.
He's pointing at you.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I think the applicant sees what's going to happen pretty quick here. But you have avenues available to you to still proceed if you'd like to. And you just touched on it. I was going to talk to you afterwards, but we'll do it now. You've got the opportunity to keep it under 500, and it doesn't have to go through the special events process. You could also assemble in Opera House Square randomly and march in the streets as well without a permit, and not take any precautions at all. So.
Can I cut you off there real
Well, you
quick?
can, but your willingness
go
to
ahead.
actually work with us to put on an event that people can choose to attend. I appreciate that your willingness to work with us to try to find something that could be acceptable. There are other avenues available to you. It's unfortunate that someone would have to do those things, but they're available to you.
Sure. I was going to say, marching in City Square, I think would hinder my ability to get special events passed in the future. So I want to work with you guys, and I want to have a good relationship with you.
So Mr. Mauer or Mr. Roloff, if we were to deny this, I'm assuming that you, if they're going less than the 500, this can be handled on the administrative end?
Yes, that is.
With that adjusted application?
That's correct. That's how we've handled other events that have come forward. It's more of a minimal use facility, or more minimal use is what we consider that type of number. So you're correct.
All right. If anybody has no further comments, can we please take the roll?
Krause?
No.
Mugrower?
Aye.
Erickson?
No.
Peschel?
No.
Ford?
No.
Allison Osby?
Aye.
Palmieri?
No.
Lost 2-5.
All right, thank you very much. Next, we have council discussion, direction to city manager, and future agenda items. Future agenda items, Mr. Roloff, or Mr. Newman, is he still here?
No, but I think I can handle it.
All
Mr.
right.
Newman, I spoke with Mr. Newman following my mid-year review about some issues that you would like to look at regarding the website. Mr. Newman's prepared. WebLink is really our Laserfiche, which was one of the things that was mentioned. So Mr. Newman was proposing to have it sooner rather than later, since it was something that was the council brought up. So he was suggesting having it at our next meeting at 5 p.m. There might be, Mayor, I'm not sure if we had a discussion. Are you okay with it on the 28th, or you want to defer?
Well,
till-
one of the things I was going to ask council is, we could probably do away with this workshop if you wanted to individually give the items that you're interested in, the specifics ahead of that date. But I just wanted to find out how folks felt about that, or if you want to dedicate that time and do a workshop.
I'm fine just giving information.
I as well.
Same here.
Yes? All right. That's
Sure.
simple.
So not necessary, and
Not necessary.
I'll have Diane contact you to kind of prompt you a little bit.
Good.
All right. Second budget workshop?
August 19th, this will be a combination of early projections for 2021. We've had some preliminary discussions with our health insurance provider, so we'll have some information there. The auditors are typically there. We'll see how that's going to go. That'll probably be a virtual presentation, I would imagine. And then just priorities from council in terms of anything you want us to particularly focus on for the coming year. So that'll be Wednesday, August 19th, and it'll be right here in room 404.
And just to clarify then, I think we received some correspondence that was, maybe someone in the public was confused. This next item is a public hearing, a special council meeting for a public hearing on the special assessments at the convention center. So we just want to be clear, that's one of our standard meetings we would normally have in chambers, but for social distancing purposes, it's being held at the convention center ahead of things. So if you could just elaborate a little bit on that.
Yeah, we've normally spread those out over several meetings as well, but we've been deferring them because of the COVID-19 situation. So we have to get going on these hearings. What we've done in recent years is we've had an early meeting where Mr. Godey or Mr. Gierach would meet with the residents here about 4:30-ish, and they get most of their questions answered because they're very specific to them. And then the hearing would be before council at 6 o'clock. So what we're proposing is having it, because it's all of our projects together, have it sort of an open house forum, right, James, from 4:30 to 6:30. Council wouldn't need to be there, but they're certainly welcome. We'll notice it so you can show up if you prefer. And then 7 p.m. the formal public hearing we would have. So that was the idea. The mayor had asked, well, that's the night before a council meeting. Could we just move the whole council meeting there, still do the early open house and have the meeting at normal times? I will defer to council on that one. James, I didn't hit you with that, but did we notice these yet?
I guess I just wanted to know from council, would we like to have 2 nights in a row, or would you like to add our council agenda items on that Monday and we don't have a meeting on the the following night?
I'm all about efficiency.
I'm with Councilmember Asby.
I'm not a fan.
Not a fan?
Not a fan. I think it's appropriate that they're
Councilmember,
separated.
oh, thank you. Councilmember Peschel? Oh, unmute.
I think they should be separated as well.
They should be separated, okay. Deputy Mayor?
I was about efficiency too, to have them the same night.
Councilmember Ford?
Yeah, can I ask Councilmember Mugarauer and Councilmember Peschel why you want to separate?
I think it's standard practice. Meetings are held at the same time, at the same location, on the same nights. That's a good practice to maintain at all costs. And I think it's just more appropriate that we do those things. My own personal thoughts.
Yeah, no, thank you.
Councilmember Erickson?
I would agree with Councilmember Mugarauer. I think just reducing confusion of when we're meeting, I'd prefer to keep them separate.
Okay, then.
Then I'm convinced, separate them.
Yep.
People expect.
All right. Okay, so we'll do them 2 different nights and see everybody Monday and Tuesday. Sure.
James is getting ready to send the letter out, so thanks for the feedback.
It was almost out in the mail, but because I've been off the last few days, I haven't had a chance to review it yet, so.
Okay, so we'll plan that for the 24th.
All right, and next we have council liaison reports for boards and commissions. Let's see here. I'll just start real quick. We had a Parks Advisory Board meeting last night. We convened at the 24th Street boat launch and were guided through a tour of some of the improvements there and some automated coming pay stations. And then Fugelberg boat launch, as well as Fugelberg Park and some of those updates. And with diversity, equity, and inclusion, we'll be meeting shortly now that we have our final 3. And there has been an agenda drafted when working with Michelle Benke and staff. And we look forward to that first meeting. Anyone else reporting?
Yeah,
Councilmember Ford?
Long Range Finance met, and we were basically setting our agenda for the next year, and there was agreement that we're going to emphasize upgrading some of our policies regarding fund balances. This was recommended by the finance director, and we all agreed it was a good place to start working.
Okay. Councilmember Elson-Osby?
Thank you. We had landmarks, and the primary, big discussion at that point was the new signage for the Grand and kind of the decision of kind of where just it should be placed on the building. It's pretty exciting, so it was a really nice presentation by Joe Furlow and good discussion among the group. So
Nice. All right. Deputy Mayor Krause?
We had Traffic Parking Advisory Board meeting tonight, and a new item on the agenda was to review the proposed street reconfiguration on South Main Street between 8th Ave and South Park Ave down by the arena. The proposal is to do 1 drive lane each direction and add parking 95 to 100 spots along both sides. Current tenants and future tenants of businesses in that area are concerned about parking, and it would greatly help with that, and they're looking to restripe that area in the August-September timeframe, hopefully.
Thank you. Any others? All right. All right then, City Manager, outstanding issues and COVID-19 update.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The outstanding issues is in there. I want to give you a few highlights of that. We are, still working on the rates. The mayor had asked that last week about the lifeline rates. We're still in the process of doing that. So I put a later deadline because it's a 6 to 9 month process. Well, we're already 6 months in, so now it's within the next 3 months we should have final report. Again, that's Ellers working on that with staff.
Can I ask a question on that?
Sure.
Before you proceed to the next one. a couple times I've asked just about that process. Are you preparing a rate case and an analysis with that included only? Because you need to come to council to get our direction on if that should be included or not, that it's not just a blanket insert. So I just want to make sure that
It's not an only.
that work isn't, so much work isn't being done, then all of a sudden we choose not to, that it's difficult to undo.
Yeah, I was expecting that we would have some kind of like preliminary discussion on that before it went into that more formal process.
It would probably be, if you do it with Lifeline rates, this is what the rates would be. If you do it without Lifeline rates, this is what the rates will be. Is that, I mean, that's really more of a finance thing. Mr. Van Goppel's not here, but that's my understanding is what we would be doing for you.
Okay.
Let's see, website we already talked about. The student busing, we've received the private chair. Thank you, Mr. Peschel. We've, in accordance with the agreement, we needed to invoice the school district, so we're doing that, and that's technically due by 9/1. Mr. Collins is working on that to have that ready to implement first of the school year. Transitional housing, I got an inquiry back from the residents of the Midtown area. I had sent them an update, and they came back and said, is there any possibility of having a meeting? The state is still not allowing their employees to have these public types of meetings. So I have reached out to the person with the Department of Corrections and asked, even though I don't think it's as desirable as having a face-to-face meeting, given the nature of this topic, would they be willing to do a virtual meeting? We had agreed on a tentative agenda, so it's not trying to figure out what we're going to talk about. Based on the council direction and our meeting with the DOC, which was the day before we declared the emergency. It was that we were that active with it. We're ready to go with it if they're ready to go. So I'm reaching out, and if that's the case, we'll have it on the next agenda for scheduling purposes. Let's see, missing ballots. You saw the Postal Service report. Pam and I are disappointed, but we need to move on with the election, and I hope council understands that. It's just the fact that it was completely silent on the issue. I think it gave out hope that it said Appleton/Oshkosh. It was really Appleton, and gave us absolutely no information at all, which was disappointing. Things are going well with the mailing of the absentee ballots. We've mailed out, or we received 10,000 requests, Pam, and that was as of yesterday.
Yes, 10,000. We've received back roughly just over 2,000 back in the office.
So we're very pleased. There's obviously a positive response to that. So we're moving forward with that. And Chief Smith and I are continuing community conversations. We had a police training session just before July 4th. Very well received. Some really good dialogue. Appreciate Pastor Butler, and we had some follow-up discussions, and that's something we're going to just keep continuing on. The July 4th weekend kind of, put things, tap the brakes on it a little bit, but that was just holiday related. We're going to keep having discussions, and I think they're very useful. I sat in on one of them, and I appreciated Pastor Butler's candor and some of our officers' candor.
Are there other community conversations besides with Pastor Butler going on in the community?
If you're asking me about the chief and myself, we don't have anything scheduled now. With the July 4th weekend, we kind of cut off, but that's our intent, is to continue more conversations. Yeah, we're not done, and it's not going to be just Pastor Butler. So that's what I have there. COVID-19 update, Chief Stanley's here. Appreciate the work of the mayor to endorse the wearing of masks. Right now, our plan is to open City Hall to the public on Monday, July 20th. As you've noticed coming in, we have a new little station up front. We're going to have an employee who's been temping with us for a while, so she's got good familiarity with City Hall already. She'll be greeting people and making sure they get to the right location, so they're not wandering around trying to get to the right spot. We don't have a receptionist right now, but this will be a receptionist of sorts to get people in the right place. We are not going to require masks, but we are going to make them available. We're not Menards, and we're not going to charge you $1. We're going to offer them to anybody to use. And there are also some rules internally for staff to wear masks when they're in public areas. And this qualifies as one of those public areas. So we're preparing for Monday by wearing our masks now. And we've got some guidelines for that. There's a little trepidation with the employees, I'll be honest with you. And it's going to be a process, but I think our goal is to protect the public and protect our employees, and that'll always be guiding us. And we'll see how it goes. I don't want to reverse course, but at the same time, I have to be prepared to reverse course if things were to turn sideways.
What do you mean reverse course?
Reverse course, reclose City Hall.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
I think we
Not,
can't
not
rule it out.
reverse course on masks, but.
No, reverse course. Well, one day we're going to reverse course on masks, and the sooner the better, because I hate these things. But that's not part of that. It's really reversing course, saying, I hope we never have to do that. But we can't rule those things out.
Councilmember McGrath.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Just a quick question. That's obviously reopening City Hall. What about our other facilities? Is there a timeline, a plan in terms of museum, library, senior center, those other facilities that are important and vital?
Yes, because of the nature of the senior center, what I'm not putting in a situation is that somebody is more opening earlier than City Hall. But if there are needs of their specific clientele, like the senior center, we're allowing them to hold back a little bit. Jean has some plans to have some limited classes beginning around the 1st of August. I think am I tracking, Ray? I'm sorry. I didn't realize you were still here, so thanks.
Yes, you're correct that we had a meeting with Mr. Roloff and Chief Stanley, and we do realize that the senior citizens are obviously very isolated, just like we are, but a little bit more than the non-seniors, I'll say. So Jean and her staff are working on, first of all, looking at some outdoor programs that they can have roughly 5 seniors come together, whether it's a book club, ukulele lessons, certain things that we can have on the back patio at the Senior Center South. So starting some outdoor small programs. And then, as Mr. Roloff said, we're looking at some of the fitness side of things. Can we do some small group exercise along the trail, along the river walk, just to get people out socializing and get back into that normalcy? And then as we get into August, the Fox Fitness Center, which is our workout area, by appointment, we're having a limit on the number of seniors that can come in, utilize the equipment. We have a cleaning protocol our staff will be doing, and then allowing another set number to come in. So very slow, very deliberate, and we're keeping an eye on the numbers and how other senior centers are handling it as well.
Are they still doing, there was some kind of like meal prep or distribution there?
Correct. That's run through the Visiting Nurses Association, and that's continued on for about the last month or so, and that'll continue.
And the library board will be taking up that issue. They had put themselves on a pretty strict regimen where they were following the Badger Bounce Back program, and you can't get more than 4 of those 6 items checked off on any single day. The board's going to review that and see if they want to revise that. And that'll be happening at their monthly meeting in July. So we're following that. Other buildings will follow our lead in City Hall. So the museum will reopen. There's going to be a lot of standards that they're going to have to clean. They're going to have some things that are going to be down because they want to avoid touching and things like that. So they'll be putting protocols in place for that. But the idea would be to reopen the museum and other facilities. Mr. Maurer has been very successful in getting people to get reservations and things like that online. We're going to keep encouraging all the online stuff. In fact, I'm going to be asking staff, keep thinking about these ideas because we want to encourage people. And for everybody who wants to come here to City Hall and do whatever activity, there are going to be just as many that still don't want to come in. and we have to respect that as well and make services available to them. So we're gonna keep working on that as well.
Councilmember Allison Osby?
Take it in the spirit in which it's meant, but I'm wondering if we could somehow turn this mask thing into something fun. You know, I wonder if there's like a private donor out there that for, say, certain days or a certain day, or, you know, whether it's, you know, our buildings or whether it's a private thing, that, you know, is there a donor that maybe for every person that comes in up to a certain amount, donates $1, you know, up to say $250 or $500, and then it goes to a nonprofit of choice, like perhaps Day by Day or United Way, or I don't know, just nothing to discuss tonight, but as we're kind of talking about this and some of the dialogue that you see on social media and other places, which tends to be more negative than positive, you know, maybe perhaps we could turn this into, I don't know, make lemons into lemonade. That's it.
Chief, was there anything else? I kind of covered the big one with City Hall reopening.
No, I think we've had a lot of conversation around COVID this evening, so I don't think I have anything to add unless anybody has any questions.
I do. You know, I've been looking at the census tract information, and I noticed that you know, that's available through the Wisconsin DHS. Can you talk a little bit about the census tracts and where we're at in terms of numbers and anything that raises an eyebrow for you?
You know, one of the things that is concerning, you know, or is raises eyebrows is the distribution. You know, that it is a corridor that we see that those cases are existing in. You know, and it's not, or at least in the past few weeks, you know, it's not unexpected because we've talked quite a bit here about the age group of 20 to 29 being, you know, one of the high spread demographics. You know, that many of the cases we're seeing are in the university corridor. You know, which you would predict based on that locale that many people would be falling in that 20 to 29 age group. So it's not unpredictable, but concerning.
So given that the university is in Census Tract 7, a little bit to the west of Census Tract 5 that has I think today was 88, and the Census Tract to the west was like 59, and everything else below that starts down around like 40, 20 and under. Does that Census Tract 5 being less than a 1 square mile with that number of cases and the in-person classes return to campus and some of that off-campus housing in that peripheral area, does that alarm you, or should we have some further conversations about the next 6 weeks and how we address that?
Sure, we are having routine phone calls with the school district and with UWO about what their plans are and what they're doing, because it is tremendously concerning, for us in public safety and in the city, but also them as providers of education, of when they go back to in-class sessions, what does that look like? And that, I think that's not something that is unique to us. That's a worldwide concern of what does this look like when we start putting school-age children or college-age students back in classrooms and interacting, and that really we don't know what that's going to look like. In talking to the school district and the university, and reading about it across the country, will there be fall sports? Will there be fall activities? Don't know. Will we have, like it was this time last year, where you just 30 kids go in a classroom, and all go to lunch together and play on the playground? Probably not. That and I don't want to overshare some of the things that they're talking about, internally as they're developing their plans, but I know they're being very mindful and concerned about that. And that is a nationwide, if not a global, concern of that whipsaw reaction to, we had the first wave, we came back down, and then now that it's wintertime again and schools are back in session and activities are picking up, are we going to see this big resurgence again? And, many of the experts believe, yes, there will be. And I think we'll continue to see, the city manager and I spoke about this at pretty great length in the discussion about reopening the building, reopening city facilities. Will there ever be a right time? Because many believe it's going to continue just to do this like a roller coaster. So we saw July 4th, and we saw, not July 4th, Memorial Day, and we saw the stay-at-home order being repealed, where it went up and then it kind of went back down again, and then it was a holiday again, and now we're going to do this for July 4th, but then it'll be Labor Day, and then it'll be Thanksgiving, and it'll be Christmas, and how do you predict that? So yes, it is concerning, that in that smaller square mileage area, that the rate of infection and spread is high, but and it's not surprising that when you look at where are the number of our cases in the city of Oshkosh, it's where the population is the most dense. So, they're living closer together. There's more in a house potentially. They may be going to bars or other public venues where they're not taking the precautions that we would recommend. So there's still a lot to be seen.
All right.
That's all we have, Madam Mayor.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We're adjourned.